Hey everyone, welcome to lesson 4 of the Chicks 101. In this part we're going to be going over chicken anatomy because I have seen a few crazy questions and gotten a few crazy questions regarding basic chicken anatomy, and so I feel like this is something that every new chicken owner should know. That way if something's wrong with your chicken or something's normal with your chicken and you just need to know, you know what's going on. So this is our basic chicken anatomy chart here, and we are going to refer back to this a couple of times in the video. So one thing that I don't really have listed on here are necessarily all of these little feet parts. So you have your claws, your toes. Some chickens have 4, some chickens have 5, some chickens have weird toes, and roosters will grow a spur, a big rooster spur on the back sometimes that you have to clip. So that's not a weird thing if they have like an extra fighting crazy looking growth on the back. Those things are mean. If you have a mean rooster, you need to keep that trimmed. So let's go on to the first part. The comb and the wattles. We talked about this briefly in the choosing your chicken breed section and saying how the bigger comb and wattles were better for chickens in warmer climates. So let's talk about it. The comb and wattles are part of the heat regulation system. They have lots of capillaries and veins for blood to pass through, which is then cooled by the air. So all the blood's going through there. It's a thin area, and the outside air is able to cool it down. Many types of comb and wattles, from large single to small walnut ones, and in the resources I'm going to include a chart of all the different types of combs or some of the different types. I'm going to try and get all of them on there, but of the different types of combs and wattles for you guys to look at. Let's talk about how the bigger combs and wattles can be bad in colder conditions. So as I was saying before, big combs and wattles, good for heat. Big combs and wattles, not necessarily good for cold areas. I'm not saying that it's not going to cause that much of a problem, but I have had a couple of my chickens with the big combs and wattles get frostbite. So they're a little bit of extra care in the winter. I go out and coat them in Vaseline and crap like that to keep them from freezing. And I take extra care to keep them in the coop on really cold days so that they don't get frostbite on their combs and wattles. The next we have the ear and the earlobe. The ears are tiny, small holes covered by feathers. So we're actually going to go back. Here's the earlobe here, but the other picture before was a much better one that you could see easily because it was a different color. So see here, this one is white. That's the earlobe, and it's just a better picture to see on. And then actually, it's really cool. They can have different colored earlobes, like I said, and silkies have this really cool, tealy, iridescent-y blue color, which is lots of fun. And it's one that you can pass on and breed to other things. So they're a fun project bird to mix with other birds. And then here is the ear here. It's this tiny hole, and it's got the feathers over it, and that's the ear. And I like to include this one just because sometimes they could have an ear infection or anything like that, and it could look a little swollen or funny. And if you're talking to a vet or somebody, you need to be able to say, hey, it's the ear that's having a problem, or I think it's the ear that's having a problem. And I think we all know what ears do, so we don't need to spend time on that. So let's just move on. This one is my favorite, you guys. I have had more than one question about the strange growth on the side of my chick's neck. My favorite one was a message that I got, and if you're watching this video, I really am not making fun of you. I get this question all the time, but yours just really made my day. And this lady was like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. I just got these chicks in, and I think there was something wrong. They were exposed to something, and they all have cancer. They have these giant growths on the side of their neck. And I'm like, it's okay. It's not cancer. It's the crop. It is the crop, you guys. Your chicks are not going to die from cancer. The crop is a muscular pouch near the gullet part of the esophagus. So we're going to go back and we're going to go look at it on our thing here. So come here, mousy. Here we have the esophagus, and here we have the crop. It's this pouch, and it expands and contracts. And it's used to temporarily store food. Think like a little hamster. It shoves all the food in its little cheeks and then slowly chews it up later. That is exactly what the crop does. That way the chicks can go run around and eat, and slowly digest it later. because they're eating bugs, they're eating other things. They're really well adapted to be able to graze and eat and digest later on. So when they find a big pile of food or a big amount of ants or a big bug nest of some kind, they can eat a whole bunch all at once and digest it later on. It's a really cool thing. And sometimes the hair will kind of separate off of it and it looks weird and it can feel all different kinds of textures. If they just ate a bunch of food, it can feel hard. If they just drink a bunch of water, it can feel squishy. Like you can poke it really easily. Sometimes it'll feel mushy. And it being full is not a problem for the most part. If for some reason your chick does not ever empty its crop, you can separate it and then give it with no food for 12 hours and see if the crop goes down. If the crop doesn't go down, then it's something else that we will talk about in a later class, probably sour crop or impacted crop. There's a couple things that happen to older chickens, not chicks for the most part. If you are feeding your chick starter and they are not free range, you're not going to have a problem with this to start with because the chick starter is easy for them to digest. This isn't something you're going to see. They're just going to have a big crop right after they eat, and then they'll probably just pass out face first with their legs spread out to the side because chickens do that and they crack me up. Next is the gizzard. The gizzard is a strong muscle that grinds up the food with the help of sand and teeny tiny rocks before the food goes into the stomach. So this is why you will see in the store chick grit. Chick grit is needed if your chickens are just in a little coop and not out free ranging because they need those tiny particles to help grind up their food. Again, it's not as necessary if you're buying the pre-made chick food from the stores because it has some of that already included in there and it just turns to mushy water anyways and passes right through and it's easily digested by them. Or if you ferment your chicken food, you don't need to have the grit is not as necessary. If you have free ranging chickens, they usually pick it up as they're free ranging by, when they're pecking the ground and getting little ants or getting whatever they're getting, they get the grit in them from sand and dirt and all of that. But if you have chickens in a coop, you need to provide chicken grit for them. So we're going to go back and show you where the gizzard is here. So we had the crop, and this is the gizzard down here. This part is the gizzard. This part. All right, and then we're going on. The next is the oviduct. This is for females, obviously, and this is important because this is how the eggs are made. So after ovulation occurs, the yolk enters the oviduct where the albumin, which is the whites of your egg, shell, membrane, and shell are made. So it just slowly travels through, and the process takes about 26 hours, about a day, for an egg to fully form through the oviduct system. And then it comes out the vent. Guess what? Chicken cloaca. I'm sorry, I love the chicken butt jokes. I'm a dork. So, this is the outlet for the digestive tracts and reproductive tracts. Cloaca, vent, you'll hear it called a couple of different things. Yep, everything comes out of one hole in the chicken. They poop, they have sex, they pop their eggs out of there. Everything comes out of one hole. That's it. They got one entrance and one exit. So, that's the cloaca. It's the butthole of the chicken. And the vagina and everything else. And that's it for basic chicken anatomy. There's not too much more that you need to know. That's really what you're going to have the most. I mean, we could go into all the types of wing feathers and wings and all kinds of craziness, but this is just basic stuff. Just like, hey, there's something wrong with my chickens. What? So, there you go. I will see you guys in the next lesson. Bye.